Greetings to you. Let us explore the meaning behind the lyrics of Æthelred by Svartsot. In general, the song tells us about King Æthelred and his conflicts with the Danish naval raiders or Vikings. Let us begin. Æthelred the Unready, King of the English, was the ruler of the Kingdom of England in the 10th and 11th centuries. The kingdom spanned the central, southern and eastern parts of the British Isles and played a major role in the region throughout its history, eventually becoming the foundation of the modern United Kingdom. Born to the Queen Æthelred, he was the youngest of his father's two children. His father died when Æthelred was no more than 10 years old, but as he was the younger of the two successors, he was second in line for the throne. The eldest son Edward indeed became the king first, but not without trouble. There were rumors of him being an illegitimate son, and it was said that he was prone to violent outbursts, and thus disliked by the nobility. Whether this was true or not, after 3 years of kingship, he was murdered by Æthelred's supporters. Æthelred himself was probably too young to play any active role in this, but that did not matter. He was now a king. Æthelred's name literally means well-advised or noble counsel, which was a rather typical name formula for nobles in that time. His nickname, the Unready, means exactly the opposite, ill-advised. It seems to be a deliberate pun on the king's name, emphasizing his mistakes and shortcomings. That being said, the nickname is first attested more than 150 years after Æthelred's rule, which probably reflects the opinion of the later generations rather than the king's contemporaries. Why does he even have the nickname, and who are those who lay claim to his inheritance in the lyrics? The subsequent verse explains it all. By the time of Æthelred's rule, the Danish Vikings were already known on the Isles. In fact, around 200 years before our protagonist was born, they had started conquering the central and eastern kingdoms, eventually establishing the so-called Danelaw. Danelaw was the name of these territories conquered by the Scandinavians and the source of endless conflicts with the locals. By the mid-10th century, Æthelred's father had reconquered parts of the Danelaw, but after his death, the Norsemen started raiding again. Several war parties had been assaulting the English for some time, and the young king had to deal with it. It is considered that for a time, these individual attacks have had no lasting effect on the kingdom, but in the end, an especially big fleet came and presented a real problem. Following the Battle of Maldon, which the English lost, Æthelred was forced to buy off the Danish. The tribute paid to the Vikings became known as Danegeld, or the Danes' gold. For the time being, the attacks stopped and the fleet retreated, but it was just a start to a dangerous trend. After all, if the Danish can come, threaten the kingdom and get massive amounts of money in return, why shouldn't they do it one more time, or perhaps multiple times? This verse elaborates on my previous point. The Battle of Maldon was a total disaster for the English, and a number of very skilled warriors was lost. In order to stop the Danish advance, Æthelred was, as we will see further, ill-advised to buy the invaders off, even if for a time. Even then, however, there are reasons to suspect that the same fleet that received the Danegeld still continued raiding for some time, so it is even possible that the money was completely squandered. It was also possible that the Viking bands fragmented and reformed into other bands as raiders came and went. New rounds of Danegeld payments followed, sucking funds out of the Englishmen. It is important to note that such payments seem to have been a tradition since the first Scandinavian raids. Evidence shows that the prior kings of England, then still just kings of Wessex, have been paying off Danish naval raiders when unable to defend adequately. It may have been seen as a last resort to protect the remaining property of the locals. It just seems that Æthelred's payments have been much larger, but even then might have been seen as a necessary step, supported by the majority. The Danes came to like the payments, and the practice of Danegeld continued even after Æthelred's death. In a sense, as the lyrics wisely point out, the English never got rid of the Danes, as a number of them eventually got to rule the country. Same with the money for buying off the invaders. It later even transformed into a kind of employment money, which was used not to make the raiders go away, but to persuade them to join the English as mercenaries and bodyguards. In any case, that's all for the meaning behind the lyrics of Æthelred by Svartsot. All the links to the band are in the description, and thanks for watching.